of all, we are pretty happy that Peter is not traveling to our site, but I'm traveling to Peter's country. While Peter is coming up, Peter is one of the patients that I'm seeing. He travels, in the beginning, he traveled every week from Switzerland into our clinic to participate in one of the genetic trials. And we want to show some light on that perspective, like how it's done. So you will hear the perspective from myself as a clinician, seeing people in clinical trials, Juliette in preparation, so the Swedish perspective, and Peter's perspective, how it is from a person living with ALS to travel from country to country and participate in a clinical trial.
Great. International patient inclusion should be the gold standard in ALS trials. That could be the whole extent of the talk. And if at the end of the talk, this is what you're convinced on, then we won. And maybe we'll start by, what does it mean, international patient inclusion? Well, that just means you're doing a trial in a country, country A, and you're going to include a patient coming from country B into your trial. And many reasons can motivate that. And this is something that not all sites offer. There are some barriers onto the why that is the case, but there are also many solutions to make it work. And this is what we will present to you today. The why is that there's a huge inequity in access in ALS trials today. So I'm going to walk you through the context I'm currently the most familiar with, just because I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden, working at the Karolinska Institutet. So we are the largest ALS clinic in the country, also the largest ALS site in terms of clinical trial. So this is a very privileged position to be in, and this is not representative of the Nordic countries or Scandinavia. If we look at the map quickly, those numbers, I collected this a year and a half ago, so they have changed a bit, but this is still the same kind of scale we're talking about. There's no ALS trial in Iceland. There's 11 sites in Norway, but they were all doing the same trial. So there's one trial in Norway. Finland, one trial site. Denmark, one trial site. Sweden, 4, but mainly 2 very active. How many clinical trials did they do? 0 in Iceland, 1 in Norway. Finland, 1 at that one site. Denmark, 1. Sweden, at that time, 11. That means that you could be a Finnish patient and you don't qualify for the one trial Finland has to offer to you. And we are like 30 minutes away from you by plane. We are doing 11 clinical trials, but you can't be in because international patient inclusion is not the standard yet. And here I'm talking about a sporadic patient who's eligible for most of the clinical trials that are out there. But when you start talking about precision medicine, targeted ALS clinical trials, we see this as becoming even more unfair. Oop, yeah, you're going to jump into that after. We see this into becoming more unfair because you could have the chance to be considered for a targeted trial for your targeted mutation, but it's not offered in your home country, and it's not made easy for you to travel to another site. So this is raising a lot of questions, both on ethics that we'll dig into, but also on how fair is it to be considered differently depending on your home country and depending on what is offered in your home country. So we're going to present to you data specifically on genetic trials, and then we'll jump back into those ethical considerations.
I think this will bring into practice like the previous talk where if you have someone living with ALS has a genetic mutation, and there are currently trials offered, but they are not offered into every country. So here I present you a list of trials that were active in 2023. Not all trials are active anymore. So the trial, the second last trial from Wave 004 is not active anymore, but especially I think the ION 363, so the FUS trial, is running in a couple of sites in the US and also in Europe, and as we all know, these patients are pretty rare. So it is important, if you are a clinical trial site, that you provide access not only to people in your own country, but also to people from foreign countries where the trial is not running. And that also accounts for Ataxin-2, where only 2 trial sites were present, us in Utrecht and one site in Turin. And as Juliette mentioned, to offer a trial for every person with this genetic mutation, it should not only be limited to Dutch and Italian patients, but also to other people in Europe. And that will we talk about later with Peter. And Juliette will show you some more insight into the ethical aspects.
And now I realize we have a screen here that's working, so yeah, I can stop doing this. So when you look at ethical literature, research-wise, you discover all of those notions about vulnerability. What does it mean to be a vulnerable patient population? And ALS qualifies at this because as an ALS patient, because there's no cure, you're vulnerable to accepting risky research. You're vulnerable to not benefit from the research that will be offered to you. So for those reasons, it becomes a huge duty for the research and clinic population and community to kind of serve the ALS patient population and community. And we see this ethical duty and responsibility as the major driving force to allowing international patient inclusion for clinical trials. And then this really brings this area of targeted versus non-targeted treatment trials. I know this will be the subject of one of the talks for a plenary session at the ALS-MND later this week. And should we, and this is a question I'm also asking you as a reflection point, should we make it standard for the targeted clinical trials that consider genetic mutations to all include international patient population and allow for this transfer and for pharma companies to support traveling of patients from one site to another, specifically for targeted clinical trials? Wasn't it you talking about? Yeah, it's you talking about practicalities.
We are advocating for international patient inclusion, but there are major practicalities that needs to be arranged upfront before you are capable to host someone from another country into your country. I will go over these points, but what I want to like with my knowledge now, like we started 1.5 years ago with the first person from abroad, is that a person living with ALS, whether they are from Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, it is still a person with ALS. So it might be frightened in that you not speak the same language. The healthcare system might be different where the patient is coming from. But in the end, it's a person living with ALS, and I think we all know what ALS means. We have the expertise. So it are mainly the practicalities that needs to be arranged. And one of those is the travel expenses. And the clinical trials that we are running, they do have third-party vendors that will cover those expenses. But also they will book the tickets, make sure that there is wheelchair accessible traveling, like either the plane or high-speed train. But it also it's not only taking effort from us as a site, that third party, but also from the person living with ALS that travels from one country to another country. And therefore, it is important to pre-discuss like either via phone or via a Teams call or Zoom, or what it means, like what do you have to offer as a site, but also what do you request from the person living with ALS. And of course, ethical approval needs to be obtained, and you need to make sure that the right insurance policies are in place. And I think with if you run an international clinical trial with which is pharma sponsored, they can help you through. So the clinical research organization or the CRO can help you guide you through that process. And it is important to discuss it within your hospital or within your clinic. What are the local policies? And contact with the referral center. So we are an international community, but it is important to know who is the referring neurologist. If there are any problems, if there are any adverse events, you want to do extra blood draws, that you have one point in the referral center that you can reach out to. And it is important to understand the differences in healthcare. Like in the Netherlands, we do not have Radicava approved, which is slightly different in Switzerland. So therefore, it is important to understand these differences in access to medications, but also how care is organized.
And just before we start talking about language, just to add to that, both Tommy and I wrote a standard operating procedure to facilitate the inclusion of international patients. So if anyone in the audience would be interested to set this up in their own center, we're more than happy to help. They come up with a lot of legal questions. So this is what you need to be prepared to answer. What if your patient has a car accident on his way to the airport in his home country, but he was going to come and see you in the other country? What if that car accident happens in your own country? They were coming to your site, or they were coming back from your site. Those are two different cases you need to anticipate. What if there's a side effect? The side effect happens in their home country. So this can be a slow process to set up because sites are often scared about who will have to pay if anything happens. And that's the terrible reality of the things you have to anticipate when you set this up. And that once you get the conversation going and you've done your research, you know how to answer those questions. It's not a problem, but it can be a bit intimidating. At least it was for me when I had to read a lot of legal texts. So it just takes practice, so we'll be happy to support you with that. When it comes to the language, we divided it into main scenarios. Either you have a person with ALS coming to your site and everybody can speak English together. So maybe it's not your own mother tongue, it's not your patient's mother tongue, but you all manage in English. You can read, understand, discuss in English. Same for your staff. Easy situation. Then ethically, you submit an information and consent form in English, it's approved. Then you have patient-facing document in English, it's approved. And then all of this gets on quite fairly easily. It gets a bit more tricky when a person living with ALS comes to you, does not speak English, only speaks one language that you do not speak, and nobody in your staff is able to communicate in that language. Then we usually partner with translation agencies. So either your hospital is able to provide one, and I'll let Peter and Tommy talk a bit more about this because that's what you guys are using. At our site, this is also what we do, but we also have partnerships with other companies, just because sometimes your hospital will tell you, yeah, I can translate over the phone. No, we're not doing a consent form review and discussion with someone on the phone with a delay. They don't hear you well. Can you repeat, please? No, we don't do that. But sometimes that's the only possibility that I have to offer, so it's then your role to kind of learn how to navigate in those situations. However, I would say this would be like a huge factor to consider because that's where we can be flexible and stretch up to make the impossible possible. The language is kind of the last barrier that exists. I'm looking at you because I just, would you agree? Of saying this, this is the one thing you can't compromise on, is making sure the patient living in ALS who traveled to you understands 100% of the discussion happening and vice versa. Can you understand their questions? Safety is not something you're going to be willing to compromise on. And this goes through language and communication. So this will be the one thing to really consider when setting this up. Did you want to talk more about your translation?
I just want to briefly add, about the in-person translation. As you can imagine, doing a lumbar puncture or administrating a cognitive test is difficult if you don't speak the same language. So even for people that speak English sufficiently, or is their second language, it might be good to have an interpreter, especially during the first visit around. Also to get it, you need to build a relationship with each other. And luckily, communication is not only through language. And as I said, you know the disease. You are a center that is familiar with the disease. But it might be useful to have this interpreter either around the corner or in the room to not only understand each other with words, but also to give a level of comfort that that person is understood what he is saying.
Yeah.
May I just say you're running into your question time?
Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to show this picture because this is our team together with Peter in Utrecht. And again, we are pretty pleased that we are now in Peter's home country. And now I give the floor to Peter.
Thank you very much for the invitation to speak here in Switzerland. You can be sure Switzerland is even smaller than Holland. And I became a frequent traveler with Swissair, participating the study in Utrecht. My name is Peter Ambühl, and I live in Switzerland, close to Zurich. I have a daughter. I'm married with Bettina, who is mostly coming with me when I have such dates. And my first ALS symptoms I had in February 18 while I was skiing in Zermatt. And then diagnosis was given in May 2019. At the moment, I'm somewhere around 37 points. In 2019, I was tested during the first examinations for the familiar genes with a negative result, and then it was done. You saw it on the screen before. And then I did quite a lot of research because I heard that there are people out there, ALS reversals, and then I saw an article about the mushroom for a juvenile ALS possibility with a certain genetic setup. And then that motivated me to do genetic testing by myself because the insurance companies are not covering it normally until you find the right doctor who is writing the right letter, and then they take it over. It took approximately 6 months until I got the result that on the original testing it was negative. They couldn't find that I have this genetic testing, but they found out that I have a autoxin gene repeat extension. And that was a surprise for me, but now I know I'm one of the 1 or 2 people living in Switzerland with this special genetic defect. And I was afterwards searching in the internet what about the gene, and then I found this guy over there. And then I called him, and actually I wrote him an email if there is a possibility to attend this biogene study from Ionis. And then we talked at the phone, and then we figured out, can I travel? Yes, I can travel. Am I motivated? Yes, very motivated. And I said, yeah, could that be a cure for? And then with the explanation of Tommy, it was clear that it is a study and that I have the possibility to get probably a medicament who might work or not. A rule of the study, they told it before, I don't pay anything, so everything is paid by the sponsor. They organize from the traveling airplane to taxi to hotel to everything. I drive to the airport and that's it. And even, I think it's important, I am now since 1 year in Utrecht, 27 times. I was at the site in Utrecht, and we became we build up a close relationship, and that's very important because they are very friendly. I think they know what they do, as I'm still here. And that we reduced, so I reduced with my visits with the team from St. Gallen to once every 6 months. Bettina normally comes with me. She's very important for me because she's helping me with the scooter I'm using. And to be honest, that's something really easy. Also, you go to the airport, there's an assistant service, everything is booked. You go to the counter, you say, "Hi, I'm here, what do you need?" Transportation to the airplane or whatever. And they are really friendly and they help you. With a 2-hour advance, when you're at the airport, it's no problem. And now I was traveling once a month to Utrecht. First, we used the car and we visited on the way up all the friends, and then after a few visits, all the friends were visited, so we switched to the airplane, and that made it easier. The first visit was 6 hours, 6 or 7 hours, so we were obliged to travel the day before, stay overnight in a hotel, and the next day it was the 6-hour treatment. In the evening, we flew back. Today, it is 3 hours, 3.5-hour treatment, so we figure out that's taking 7 o'clock in the morning the airplane, returning by 8. It's a long day, but it's, yeah, your next day a bit tired, but it's okay. And today I know that I get my study, or the study medication in the prolonged, how do you call it? The
open label extension.
Thank you very much. And that is announced to be going on till 2026. And today I'm looking forward to participate, travel once a month to Utrecht, and I'm using my scooter, and everything actually is going well. You told everything about the language. I'm up to learn a bit Dutch. I hope you learn a bit Swiss German for me. And for me, the situation it became with the discussion about the research, with the discussion about what's going on, I feel like being a bit more important in the whole family, that I can give something to the community, even probably if I don't get the right study medication. I know that I have this gene repeat extension, which is quite rare, and I have 4 points to the audience. Genetic testing, it's really, really important, because I'm 1 or 2 ALS patients are living with my gene mutation in Switzerland. So who the hell is going to find them? So if we would like to have a medicine who will become quick on the market, we have to make those studies run efficiently through the process. And the second thing, I think the national institutions, the clinics, should really make attention to the patients, that there is a possibility to attend internationally in studies. As I'm missing it a bit in the association here, that they take extremely well care about the patients, but the study could be more motivated. And then the fourth thing, patients should know about the possibilities that they can as well register in international databases like TriCalls, that somebody else can find them even if the medical doctor in their home country is not offering the service. And I'm personally really, really proud that I'm here, that I can participate, and now I see the lady in the back. Bang, bang, bang. Thanks a lot. Have a great day in Switzerland, and see you soon. So.
Peter, Tommy and Juliette, thank you so much for a fascinating perspective. And I think you've really highlighted some of the challenges of the international trials. But thank you for your participation and your presentation.
And
thank you.
Come to us if